Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latics Lowdown. It has been a couple of weeks since we last spoke. I believe the last time we spoke was the Leighton Orient game. There's been quite a bit that has happened since then. We've had, I believe, 4 games and 2 outgoings, so we've got quite a lot to dig our teeth into today. We'll start off with the outgoings. John Mellish has gone to MK Dons, and Ronan Darcy as well, who's been gone for a little bit now, but he's gone to Chesterfield as well. 2 players that I think, if we're all honest with ourselves, Ryan Lowe just didn't see them as part of our system. I think, you know, they just didn't suit the way that we wanted to be moving forwards. I think Ryan Lowe spoke very honestly about John Mellish maybe lacking in areas that he felt that he needed. And unfortunately, we had this similar sort of uncomfortable conversation in the summer, I think, with Scott Smith, who, you know, as much as he offers in running power, as much as he offers in like grit and fight and determination, he lacks for in technical ability. I think it is fair to say. But again, a player that offered things in moments with running power, but the quality wasn't there. I think he had a really poor couple of games under Ryan Lowe as well this season, and I think that just sort of spelt the end for John Mellish. Really, he's got a good move on loan to MK Dons in League Two. I expect, to be honest, to win that league. The amount of money that they've sort of pumped into that squad, but do I even see him being a particularly huge part of the MK Dons squad? I've got to be honest, probably not. Um, on the other hand, Ronan Darcy, good move to Chesterfield. He's already picked up a decent goal, I saw, over the weekend. So good luck to them both. I think, if we're honest, I don't foresee either of them having sort of a stellar season, maybe Ronan Darcy more so. But I don't see either of them coming back into the squad even at the end of the season when they come back from those loan moves. I think long term they'll just be looked to be sold on for money. I think it's a real damning indictment of that televised guard replacement, the Ronan Darcy move, to be honest with you. But what's said is now done. We've got Callum Wright, we've got Ryan Trevitt. I just think he found himself, Ronan Darcy, falling down the pecking order a little bit further than he'd have probably liked to have been. And John Mellish the same. I mean, if he wanted to be a midfielder, he had a lot of players coming in that position. If he wanted to be a centre back, he had Morgan Fox, he had Luke Robinson in front of him, probably, I would argue. And so it is probably the right move. We've got quite a bloated squad at the moment. We're starting to sort of trim it down now, but I was of the belief that we had quite a bloated squad. And for what I think we need to bring in the last sort of week or so of this window, we couldn't really afford to do that with the squad spaces that were taken up by the likes of Mellish, by the likes of Ronan Darcy, by the likes of Dion Rankine, who seemingly is struggling to get a move, I would imagine. But that's 2 players out of the door, 2 players in a bloated midfield, and 2 players that I don't think were really going to get that many minutes under Ryan Lowe if he was honest with them, which, it seems like he has been. In terms of incomings, if we're going to touch on that for a moment, I think, look, we've got just over a week left now of this transfer window, and I think it's clear to me, and I think it's clear to a lot of people, that we're probably a little bit underprepared when it comes to sort of personnel. I think we're a wing back short. I think we're potentially a midfielder short, even a centre half short, if I'm honest. Suspensions and injuries haven't been kind in the early stages of this season. And I think when you consider the outgoings that you would potentially see, you could still see Sessignon leave. You could still see maybe a Johnny Smith leave. You could still see Dion Rankine leave. Wing back for me is the key area. Fraser Murray, touch wood. If Fraser Murray is to crop up with an injury, then we are in trouble on that right hand side with the injury to Isaac Mabaya. It would be Callum McManaman, it would be Johnny Smith, who I don't need to continue to say my thoughts on Johnny Smith at wing back, and that hasn't changed after the Stockport game last night. I think, yeah, we are a wing back short on that right hand side for me, or a wing back short maybe on the left hand side, and then you could shuffle the pack. But I would prioritise a right wing back, especially if that Isaac Mabaya injury is as bad as we have feared, to be honest. But yeah, it needs to be a busy couple of weeks for me. More so on the outgoings front, if anything. I think we've struggled really at getting players out that we don't value and that we don't need. Even Ronan Darcy and John Mellish. I mean, I think if you'd have asked Ryan Lowe if he could permanently cut ties with them, and just get a little bit of cash into the transfer kitty, would he have done that? I believe that he would have. And the fact that they are only loan moves is a little bit disappointing to me because I can't, like I said, I can't foresee them coming back and pulling up trees, no matter how they do in League Two. To be honest with you, I think it's more of a system thing and they don't suit it. But we are going to have to look to chip off Dion Rankine. We are going to have to look to chip off Sessegnon if we can. And then the incomings will need to be made. I'll probably do one more, not necessarily a video, but I'll probably do one more segment, maybe next week, about players that we could move for last minute. If anyone's interested in seeing that, I could bring that next week for players that we could sort of not panic buy, but bring in last minute to fill holes, really, whether that be in the first team or whether that be in the squad. But yeah, that's about it on the transfer front. Really a dire lack of rumours on incomings, to be honest with you. I'm really surprised that we haven't had anything, to be honest with you, at all in the last 3-4 weeks, to be honest, since the last signing. But obviously, we'll continue to bring you those as they come in, and I imagine they will. I think it would be a miss to have a Wigan transfer window that ends without a flurry. To be honest with you, it never happens. We always end up signing at least a player on deadline day. It happens every year, in every window. But that is about it for the transfers. We'll move on to the games. We have had 4 of those since we last spoke. Apologies. I was struggling for content last week with the lack of transfers and everything. I thought I'd leave it a little bit. We could get a bit more sort of data downloaded on how we're playing and how we're lining up, and just a bit more to talk about. And that's where we are now. Obviously, a big win over Peterborough, which feels like forever ago now. Which, Christian Sadie and Jason Kerr with the goals there. Sadie, by the way, wow. Just wow. I'm convinced that if he stood in front of a bus, the bus would bend around him. He is that strong. He is unbelievably strong, is Christian Sadie. And he obviously got off the mark against Peterborough. But what else have we had? We had a loss at Luton, which, I think if you asked me before that game, with especially context, the lineup that we put out in that game due to sort of injuries and illness by the sounds of things, I really didn't expect much in that Luton game. And to come away with only a 1-0 loss and a performance like we did, I was really impressed. I think when you're losing key components like Hungbo, like Murray, you are going to struggle a lot more. I think we saw that again last night with Stockport. When they come on, they change the game. So when you aren't going to have them, you are going to struggle. But I was impressed with the Luton game. I was, all things considered. Obviously, you don't want to lose games, do you? But I was impressed with the performance. And then Rotherham as well. A game of 2 halves, really, wasn't it? That first half was, you want to put more of those chances away while you're on top of games, and we should have. But the second half was night and day, to be honest with you. And Ryan Lowe said that himself. The second half wasn't good enough, and that's why we only came away with a point, and Paul Mullin had to rescue a point. But overall, since we last spoke, I think we're doing all right. We're doing as probably expected. If we could click into gear a little bit more consistency-wise, especially away from home, then we could really see us climb this table now. But Stockport at the weekend is going to be a tough one, to be honest. I think last night I wouldn't really go off too much. I think both teams rested key players, and if I'm honest, I think we probably put more of those players on to go and win the game, and that's why we did. Whereas Stockport, I feel like, sort of reserved the big hitters a little bit more than we did. And obviously, they have gone out the Carabao Cup now to us, so it played off in that regard. But they are going to come at us full throttle next time out, and it will be a completely different game if you ask me. I think from both sides, obviously, you'd imagine we will start Costello, you'd imagine we'll start Sadie, Murray, Hungbo, and we'll start a lot quicker than we did. I think performance-wise, that first half from both teams, to be honest with you, was poor. It was just a bit of a boring game to watch up until about 60, 70 minutes when the substitutions came on. And then we got entertaining and we scored. And Fraser Murray, again, with another goal, which I'm waxing lyrical about Fraser Murray what seems like every week now, but I am convinced he is going to be the player of the season in the league, not even just for Wigan. Like, I'm convinced he's going to be the player of the season. He will be up there with the like Davis Keeler Duns of the league come the end of the year. I'm telling you, he will be. Maybe not necessarily for goals, but when you combine his goals and assists that he will get, Fraser Murray is up there with anyone in this league. Absolutely up there with anyone. But yeah, I expect Saturday to look a lot different. I think there were areas of the pitch where maybe we could get at Stockport based off of what we saw last night. And I think they did show the hand in certain areas of the game. I think we could get at them out wide. I mean, Asamoah, I'm not hearing this from people who think that we should get rid of Asamoah. It's nothing but lunacy, if you ask me. I think Melise is like the pace that he offers is so frightening. Like, it's actually frightening, and you can't just send that out on loan to League Two to like develop his own product. You've got to develop that here. You can't send him away with that amount of pace. He must strike like living nightmares into defenders who like they're stood next to him on the halfway line. They've got to look over the shoulder and think, right, I've got to drop deep 5 yards here because if he gets the run on me, like I'm not catching him at all. I'm not catching him. But yeah, we'll touch on Stockport a little bit more later in the episode. This episode isn't going to be too long again because, to be honest with you, on the transfer front and things like that, just nothing seems to be happening. But we'll touch on Stockport a little bit later on. We'll go back momentarily to the games that we have already played. Peterborough, I think, was really impressive. Again, Fraser Murray down that right-hand side is just a joke. Christian Sadie, again, in the box, a joke. But I'm a big fan of the way that we're sort of pulling this team together now. I think it's hard to... The idea of sort of how you would stop us and how you would stop our dangerous players is it's positive for us because realistically, the only way that you can really stop Fraser Murray is by doubling up on him. And if you're doubling up on Fraser Murray and you're wasting 2 players on him, we'll just go the other way through Hungbo. Like, you know what I mean? There's easy ways to negate these things. And having wingers, and I've said this for the last 2 years because we've had, respectfully, the likes of Silko Thomas and Michael Olakigbe and anyone else that you want to throw into that mix. Having dangerous wingers, you can't put a price on it at all. And Fraser Murray and Joseph Hungbo are striking up a real sort of, I know they're not on the same side of the pitch, but they're striking up a real partnership out wide. And they just offer very similar things down each flank that are really, really dangerous. They're just both lethal. And when you've got people in the box like Paul Mullin, and you've got people in the box like Dara Costello who will get off the mark eventually. I think he's going to have a Charlie Wyke-esque sort of start to his wing career, where as soon as that first goal goes in, I think they are going to start breaking for him. Christian Sadie again, who's just outrageous. There's going to come a point in this season where we absolutely nail some teams 4 or 5-0, and I don't think it's far away at all. I think maybe a little bit more creativity in the midfield, and that could be in the form of a signing, and we will start to sort of tick as a team. I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Ryan Trevitt. Wow, Ryan Trevitt is a player. He's an absolute baller. I am such a fan of Ryan Trevitt. He's energetic, and if we can keep him fit, which he has struggled with before, and that is the worry that we lose someone like a Trevitt through injury. We don't really have the squad depth to sort of back him up. But if we can keep Ryan Trevitt fit, that'll be absolutely huge for us. I think last year of his contract at Brentford as well. So it's sort of like a trial year really for him. You don't want him to do too well though, because then he moves on to the sort of the Championship immediately, and you sort of don't want him to get 20 goals and 20 assists. You want him to sort of temper it a little bit, but keep doing what he's doing. And I'm a big fan of him. Big fan. A lot of people get him confused with Callum Wright, which, other than them both being blonde, I don't particularly understand, but, fair enough. But yeah, we'll move on to Stockport. just to round off today's episode, we'll look towards the weekend. Obviously, the Carabao Cup draw also is tonight, which I think I got a message today saying there is a 58% chance that we draw a Premier League team. Now, you already know that we are going to hit the 42% and we're going to get, I don't know, Grimsby at home when Grimsby beat Man United tonight. We'll see. But bear with me. I'll get the lineup here. This is the team that I would go with at the weekend against Stockport. This is the team that I would run with. I think that back three needs to stay as it is. I think Sessegnon came in yesterday and, there were moments where he struck fear into me, I've got to be honest. So I think this back three is really, really solid, having Aimson on that right-hand side, obviously with the injured Carragher. Kerr down the middle, Fox on the left with that experience. Midfield three, I think Francois in the pivot. Matt Smith, for me, had a bit of a dodgy game last night, and it's his first game in a long time, so you let it off, but I thought he had a bit of a shaky game, if I'm honest with you. I think Tyrese Francois has started this season brilliantly, so I would keep him in the pivot. Tobias Brennan, I think on that right-hand side, is really, really developing into that Panucci Kamara role that we spoke about before the season had started and that we spoke about last season. It's really coincidental in it that when you need a 6'3" midfielder who can go and win the ball back and is really leggy, a 6'3" midfielder who can go and win the ball back and is really leggy just appears out of your academy, which is always really helpful. It saves, a bit of money going out and just getting the next Panucci Kamara. He's just appeared in your team, and he's also 18 years old, 19 years old. So really, really coincidental, but also really beneficial. I would like Ryan Trevitt on this left-hand side of midfield. I think Trevitt, again, as I've just spoke about, I think he's brilliant. I think the idea of playing him and Callum Wright is maybe a little bit too much for me. I don't hate it, but I just think you want to get Tobias Brennan in there because Stockport are a good side and they are going to come at us. And you do need, for me, an extra ball winner in there. And Tobias Brennan is absolutely brilliant. I think you can easily shift into this and you can easily move into this sort of formation. And Brennan can slip in here next to Francois and you're absolutely fine. And then you get the ball back and you go again. But yeah, that's the midfield lineup that I would go with. Hungbo and Murray out wide. I don't think I need to particularly justify. They're both our best wing backs, and if anything, we just need backup that is like them. Sadie up front, again, one that you don't particularly have to justify. The man could hold off a train, to be honest with you. Him in the corner last night, holding that ball up, was a sight to behold, it's fair to say. And Derek Costello, I think, again, I'm 50-50 on whether I go with Costello or Asamoah. I think, look, we've seen it last night in that run that Asamoah made, literally down here, all the way up into here. Asamoah literally ran the length of the pitch last night. If you haven't seen it, please try and find a way to watch what he just did, because he literally picked the ball up on the edge of our box and should have won a penalty, which is another reason why I will not support this idea that he should be loaned out. But Costello, I think, has a bit more he's got a bit more rounded of a game, if I'm honest. And I would favour him at the moment over Asamoah. I think as well, to have Asamoah off of the bench with that amount of pace would be lethal. And in a game that is going to be really tight, you are going to need to use your substitutions. Paul Mullin in this game, I wouldn't use at all, to be honest, even off the bench. I don't think he's going to offer anything. I'm of the opinion personally that, look, he's a good poacher, Paul Mullin, and he's had a good career. I don't foresee it working here. I don't. I've got to be honest. I'm calling it a little bit early, and I know he scored the equaliser at Rotherham, and he is probably our top scorer. But I mean, if you've watched this show before, and you watched it in pre-season, especially when the Mullin rumour was sort of floating about, I was of the opinion then, before he'd even signed, that I didn't particularly see where he fitted into this team, and I still really don't. I've got to be honest. I think off the ball, he doesn't offer much. I think on the ball, in possession, if it's not in the 18-yard box, he doesn't offer much. His hold-up play isn't as good as Sadie's. He's not as quick as Asamoah or Costello. I really struggle with Paul Mullin in this side, I have to be honest. But he has his uses, I suppose, in like really specific moments. Personally, I would. It sounds really harsh, but personally, I'd cut ties as early as January if we can, and look to bring in maybe a younger player who is more similar to a Costello mold. But again, just specific to this Stockport game, I wouldn't play Mullin. You'd lose me a little bit because I feel like the key areas here for this game are sort of these areas. And it's where we saw Asamoah basically essentially should have won his penalty. I think these are the key areas for me in this Stockport game. It's these sort of wide areas where you can really drag those Stockport centre halves into wide areas and cause them a problem. Look, if Corey O'Keefe thinks that he can have a game against Joe Hungbo, I wish him good luck. Because Hungbo is wicked and strong. The return of the king. I've been waiting for this. The return of the king. Oh, am I going to call him the king? No, take that back. We can't call you a king, Hugh. I'm sorry. But the return of Hugh, basically. Hello, Hugh. Hello from Mackey's. What have you ordered, mate? I probably won't bring it on the screen, but I'm intrigued. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, the wide areas we can drag those Stockport centre halves out into and get them into deep waters. And put it this way, especially if Asamoah is on the pitch, you do not want to be a centre half getting dragged into a wide area by Melissa Asamoah. You will be burnt by it severely. Even Dara Costello, to be honest with you. And that is why I would go with him over Paul Mullin, because I feel like Costello has that ability to drop into these areas more and just cause problems. Same with Christian Sadie, to be honest. I think obviously he's not as quick, but the strength to sort of hold off a centre back here and just spin into these areas with Costello making runs in behind, like it's potentially really, really dangerous. That's so harsh, unsubs. Well, sorry, Hugh. I guess you'll be sorely missed, I suppose. You've still not told me what you're having from Mackey's, mate. So maybe that can be the judge, Hugh. If you we've probably got a few minutes left here, as I'm talking. But Hugh, in these final moments, mate, if your Mackey's order is good, maybe you can be the king again. But until that moment, you can forget it, mate. But yeah, absolutely. This is the team I would go with for the Stockport County game. Our problem at the minute is that substitutes seem to be potentially negatively impacting games. Not last night. Last night was different because the substitutes were our starting team essentially. But I think we just do need a little bit of squad depth. To highlight this, I've made this up. This is our squad as we stand. Oh, here we go. We've got Hughes Mackey's order. Let's just pause the whole episode. Pause everything. Hughes got his Mackey's order in. Cheeseburger, double cheeseburger, and oh god, I've gone over it. Sorry, Hugh, give me a moment. Cheeseburger, double cheeseburger, and small vanilla milkshake. 2 burgers is broad. I've got to be honest. It's brave. 2 burgers and no alternative. That's a lot of cheeseburger, Hugh. It's a lot of cheeseburger. It is a lot, mate. I'm unsure. You've got to at least get some like chips in there. Oh, yeah, I'm not here that much anymore because I have football on Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6:30. That's no excuse, Hugh. These go live at 7. It's no excuse. I'm not hearing it from you. Do better. Do more, Hugh. God. Anyway. I'm only messing. But yeah, this is our squad depth as we digress. This is going to be like that thing again where someone said that I'm like the dog from Up, getting distracted every 5 minutes. But yeah, Tickle, Watson, Carragher obviously who's injured, Aimson, Kerr, Fox, Robinson, Sessignon, Francois Smith. I mean, I don't know why I'm reading them out. You can read them there. Key areas for me, wing back, as I said. I've obviously left Maguire out because I do think that he is just going to be out for the season, to be honest with you. So I've left Maguire out there on that right-hand side. Left-hand side, I believe Kamani Miller is injured. Your attacking midfield there of McHugh, Adams and Wright. Obviously Wright, first teamer. Adams we've not seen at all this year. McHugh we've barely seen at all this year. There's players that can play on that left-hand side like Trevitt, like Weir. but I believe we probably need one more in the middle if you were to ask me after letting go of John Mellish, especially if we can bring in a left footer, that'd be brilliant as well. I know there's been a little bit of talk about the desire to bring in another number 9 from Ryan Lowe. I wouldn't focus on it, I've got to be honest. Even with my sort of reserved attitude towards Paul Mullin, I wouldn't focus on a striker. I would focus on bringing in a centre-back, because you've got to bear in mind Carragher's injured. And I would focus on bringing in a right wing-back mainly. Just because, again, if Fraser Murray pulls up injured, number 1, I'll cry. Number 2, you're really short on that right-hand side. McManaman can't play game after game after game, and Dion Rankine, there's a broad acceptance that he shouldn't be here, and he won't be here for much longer if that's possible to do. And also, if Hungbo pulls up injured on that left-hand side and Kamani Miller isn't available, Murray can move over to that left-hand side, and you can bring in that right-sided player that you sign. So I really think we should be focusing on a right-sided midfielder, a centre midfielder, and a centre-back, which is a lot to do in just over a week. But I'm sure the club will have their targets. We missed out on a Kagbu to Peterborough, who thank whoever, because as far as I'm concerned, he's dreadful. I've got to be honest. He's dreadful. And Peterborough fans would say the same. But yeah, right-sided centre-half, right-sided midfielder, left-sided centre midfielder, striker if you're feeling greedy. That is what I think we need to do going into the last week of the window. Let me know in the comments after this video is finished what you think we should do. That is about all we've got time for really today. I believe we are ball number 22, although, you know, if there's a northern and southern split, if you were here last week, a couple of weeks ago now, if you were here when the Carabao Cup draw for the Stockport game was, I apparently now have no idea about how this Carabao Cup draw works. Apparently there's some north-south divide that we've created that I wasn't aware of. But I believe it's number 22. It might be wrong. Check Latics' Twitter. They'll know, obviously, where we're at. If you were to ask me, just to end the video, who do I want? We're ball number 25, by the way, I've just been told. I would like Everton away. New ground. Get me there. Get me there. I want to be there. But that is all we've got time for today's episode. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, all that jazz on your way out. Apparently, it helps me out. And I will see you the same time, all being well, next week. Ta-ra.